Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Vishnupad Paramahansa Parudikacharya Ashtottara Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jaya Vishnupad Paramahansa Parudikacharya Ashtottara Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Excuse me. Hello? Can you, this is kind of the lady side over here. You can sit on a bench over there. Men here, ladies there. Okay. Now, if anyone is Vijay around? Huh? You've seen him like in the last hour too? Okay, so he's probably in his room sleeping. I didn't see his car in the usual spot. Anyway, we're okay. All righty. So let me just make sure I know exactly where we are. Is it text 14? Yes, it's text 14 on page 437 in almost all of your books. Otherwise, you see 1014 in the gutter at the top of the page. 1014. 437, most of your books. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 9th day of January 2023 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are in chapter 10 entitled The Opulence of the Absolute, text number 14, page 437. Sarvam etad ritam manye yanmam vadasi keshava nahite bhagavan vyaktim vidur deva nadanavaha sarvametadritam manye yanmam vadasi keshava nahite bhagavan vyaktim vidur deva nadanavaha sarvametadritam manye yanmam vadasi keshava nahite bhagavan vyaktim vidur deva nadanavaha sarvametadritam manye yanmam vadasi keshava nahite bhagavan vyaktim vidur deva nadanavaha. Vrindavan, go ahead. Sarvametadritam manye yanmam vadasi keshava nahite bhagavan vyaktim vidur deva nadanavaha. Sarvametadritam manye yanmam vadasi keshava nahite bhagavan vyaktim vidur deva nadanavaha. Go ahead. Sarvametadritam manye yanmam vadasi keshava nahite bhagavan vyaktim vidur deva nadanavaha. Chris, you want to try? Not tonight. Oh, here. Sarvametadritam manye yanmam vadasi keshava nahite bhagavan vyaktim vidur deva nadanavaha. Maybe? Not yet. Go ahead, Arjuna. Sarvametadritam manye yanmam vadasi keshava nahite bhagavan vyaktim vidur deva nadanavaha. Sarvametadritam manye yanmam vadasi keshava nahite bhagavan vyaktim vidur deva nadanavaha. Sarvametadritam manye yanmam vadasi keshava nahite bhagavan vyaktim vidur deva nadanavaha. Sarvam, all, etat, this, ritam, truth, manye, I accept. Yat, which, mam, unto me, vadasi, you tell, Keshava, O Krishna, na, never, he, certainly, te, your Bhagavan, O personality of Godhead. Vyaktim, revelation. Viduhu, can know. Devaha, the demigods. Na, nor Danavaha, the demons. Translation. Now this is Arjuna speaking to Krishna. O Krishna, I totally accept as truth all that you have told me. Neither the demigods nor the demons, O Lord, can understand your personality. Purport. Arjuna herein confirms that persons of faithless and demonic nature cannot understand Krishna. He is not known even by the demigods, so what to speak of the so-called scholars of the modern world? By the grace of the Supreme Lord, Arjuna has understood that the Supreme Truth is Krishna, and that he is the perfect one. One should therefore follow the path of Arjuna. He received the authority of the Bhagavad Gita. As described in the 4th chapter, the parampara system of disciplic succession for the understanding of the Bhagavad Gita was lost, and therefore Krishna re-established that disciplic succession with Arjuna because he, Krishna, considered Arjuna his intimate friend and a great devotee. Therefore, as stated in our introduction to the Gita Upanishad, the Bhagavad Gita should be understood in the parampara system. When the parampara system was lost, Arjuna was selected to rejuvenate it. The acceptance by Arjuna of all that Krishna says should be emulated. Then we can understand the essence of the Bhagavad Gita, and then only can we understand that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Om Jnana Timarandrasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara, the disciplic succession. So, this is a very significant verse, because this Arjuna is giving us the model for how to receive the knowledge that Krishna is giving in the Bhagavad Gita. This phrase, Sarvam etadritam manye yagmam vadasi keshava, means that I accept as truth everything you say, O Krishna. And what did Krishna just say? A few verses back, text 8, Aham sarvasya bhavavo mattak sarvam bhavartate, that everything is emanated from me. I am the ultimate source of everything that exists. That is more or less the definition of God in the Vedas. We find in the Vedanta Sutra. Now, sutras are little aphorisms. They're very short, and they need some explanation. But the Vedanta Sutra begins with this injunction. It's kind of a call to all human beings. Atato Brahma Jigyasa, which means, now then, having come to the human form of life, you should inquire into Brahman. And what is that Brahman? Brahman means the great, that's one of the definitions. That's defined in the next sutra. Janmad yasya yataha. Janma means birth or origin. Yasya refers to this, everything that we see, and that we don't see, but everything that exists. Yataha, from which. That from which, or from whom, everything has emanated, everything is created. So that's exactly what Krishna said in text 8. I am that personality, I am that entity, I am that truth from which everything has emanated. And then he goes on to explain that those who are wise, the Buddhas, the intelligent ones, worship me with all their heart, understanding that to be true. How do they do it? Matchiddhamagata prana bodhiyantak parasparam. We spent a lot of time on this verse. It's kind of the summary of how to be Krishna conscious. Place your mind on me. Now, what's the best way in this age? Chant Hare Krishna, the holy name. It's very easy. It is said in the 12th canto Bhagavatam, Kale doshana de rajanasti eko mahadguna, kirtanadeva krishnasya mukta sangha param vajay. This verse comes in a chapter which lists some of the degradations of Kali Yuga, the Yuga that we're in now. We don't live very long, our mercy is decreasing, truthfulness is decreasing. Have you noticed? Yeah. Yes, yeah. There's all kinds of things like that, and in other words, it's not the best age for contemplation, peaceful meditation. There's a previous age, the Satya Yuga. There's a kind of a cycle, like seasons. We're in the last season. You know what Kali means? Who knows the word Kali means? Quarrel, conflict. Have you noticed? I've been around for 75 years, and ever since I was reading the newspaper at age 10, there's been some war going on. You know, oftentimes the United States is involved, sometimes not. There's always some conflict going on. And it seems to be getting worse. So this age is not at all good for contemplation, meditation. We don't live that long, always disturbed. And if we are interested in spiritual life, chances are some bogus personality will come and cheat us, right? There's that misguided and always disturbed. So what to do? Chant the holy name. This verse says, Kali doshanide rajanasya mahadguna, that this age of Kali is an ocean of faults. And some of them are listed, there's more. But there's one very special quality in this age. Just by chanting the holy name of Krishna, one can, what does it say? Kali doshanide asti eko mahadguna kirtanadeva krishnasa mukta sangha param vrajet. Sanskrit is a very wonderful language, very compact and full of meaning. Mukta Sangha. Mukta Sangha means getting free of all the attachments and the bad association that we're carrying with us. And the basic principle of Krishna consciousness is that we are eternally spiritual beings. We never die and we're never born. Body is born and the body dies, but the soul, the person, the consciousness goes on. We're as eternal as Krishna is. But because we're minute, worse than minute, infinitesimal, we have the unfortunate quality of being covered by the material energy and forgetting all that. We identify with this particular body. We're born in America. Oh, I'm an American. How lucky. Whoa, I'm fortunate. Yeah, you can be born as an American as a dog next life too, and you're still an American. So, and it all depends on the consciousness that we create in this lifetime. That's the template for our next birth. That's very logical science. That is the template. So that changes the whole calculation, doesn't it? It's not just one life that we're dealing with. All right, I'll work very hard. I'll get into college and get a good job, you know, and just work. And I'll have some money. I'll be able to retire, and then I'll die peacefully, and that'll be it. That's total illusion. If there's no inquiry, which is the second sutra here, no inquiry into the absolute truth, then the whole human life is wasted. The human life is a special, if you will, gift by which we can actually break out of the bonds of material, of matter, and illusion and suffering. What is it? What are the four miseries that we should always remember so that we stay sober in this world? Death. What's another one? Two more. Birth, disease. So birth, old age, disease, and death. I like to kind of remember them in the order that you usually experience them. Birth is obviously first. And then you go through, I'm doing all right, you know, young man, young woman. Middle age, it's all right, I'm taking my supplements, we're good. You know? But then middle age turns into old age. Me? I'm going to be older. I remember, I like to tell this story. I used to live in Miami, right on the beach. I worked on the Bhagavatam. We had a temple. It had been a hotel in Miami Beach. So I had an office, and I could see the ocean. So just before I got there, they spent millions of dollars and built this long boardwalk on Miami Beach. You know, it's a big resort area, you know. So it turns out that there's a certain number of people who come up to Miami from South America, wealthy Brazilians especially, and you know, young people who had money. You know, and they come, they set up a volleyball net, and they were playing volleyball on the beach. You know, young, good-looking, rich. You know, but Miami Beach is traditionally a place where people retire who can afford it, usually from New York. You know, they come down. So they would be walking on the boardwalk with the canes, you know, kind of drumming along, you know, like that. So here you have a perfect contrast. You have the young, wealthy, healthy, you know, exuberant youth playing volleyball, and just 20 feet away, You have the old age people walking, you know, and just trying to get a little sun, fresh air, whatever, you know. Now, the psychology is, because I remember when I was that age, you know, says, boy, I'm glad I'm not old, you know. You feel, I'm constitutionally 18, 19, maybe 20, you know. I'm in good shape. But actually, the old people are looking there through, you know, a whole life of wisdom. They may not say it, but they say, yeah, you're headed toward where I'm headed. In other words, you may think you're young now, but you're going to, isn't that the psychology? Just like you identify, yeah, I'm an American. I'm really lucky I'm not, you know, been born in some other country or whatever, you know. But that's just a temporary condition. Life is so fleeting when you think of the vast number of years that we've been conditioned in going from body to body to body. And the fact is, you're not assured of a human body, you know. You can lose this human body. If you act like an animal, it's described, this is a verse spoken by Krishna. Yasyatma buddhi kunapeti datake swadi kalatrashita bhoma ijidi yatirtha buddhi salele nakarachid janesha bhigyesha saheva gokaraha. It's a famous verse. One who thinks, yasyatma buddhi kunapeti datake. Kunape is like a bag full of the mucus, bile, and air, the traditional elements, you know, in Ayurveda. In other words, really, what is this body? If you just imagine if your skin was transparent, pretty disgusting, huh? Pretty scary. But that's what the body is. But we idolize it, you know, and shower, you know, try to keep it clean, try to make, you know. But it's not. It's really a tremendous come down for the soul. We have an eternal spiritual body, just like Krishna has his body is eternal spiritual. But because we decided we wanted to try to be Krishna or imitate Krishna rather than serve Krishna, which is our natural position, which brings unending, ever-increasing bliss, by the way, we got involved in the material energy, which is created for that purpose, kind of a reformatory for all the souls who are rebelling against the Lord. And our mind is completely absorbed in trying to exploit this world, trying to avoid the dangers, you know, dealing with whatever body we may have. Very rarely is it human, you know. And that's our fate, but we forget. We forget. As soon as you leave this body, the trauma of death makes you forget everything. And then when you're born again as a child, you know, whatever body you may be in, whatever, maybe a human body, you're raised in all kinds of ideas, and you identify, oh, I belong to this family, this, that. So that's the actual problem we have. And Krishna is describing how to get out of that. This is the way to. So what he says in the first verse is Mukta Sangha Param Vrajet. This is mentioned in that verse about the holy name. By chanting Krishna's holy name as a process of sadhana, bhakti, yoga, then if you perfect it, you get free of all your attachments and involvements and enthrallment with this material world. And you're filled with, you see Krishna everywhere. It's not that you don't see everything, but you see it in its proper perspective. Really a large part of Krishna consciousness is just trying to come to the point of seeing Krishna everywhere, of perceiving him everywhere. I'm just listening to these wonderful lectures by Srila Prabhupada. By the way, if anyone's interested, let me know. I'll send you a link you can download. You have the link, right? Download all the Prabhupada's. You can, okay. All the Prabhupada's Srimad Bhagavatam lectures, they also have the Gita lectures, hundreds and hundreds of them. So when he came to the beginning of chapter 7, I think he was traveling in India, he kept giving a lecture on the first verse of the chapter. It's so important. It is said that the middle 6 chapters, in which we're in now, chapter 10, are the most important of the Gita. And when you study the Bhagavad Gita, we've been going around and around. I got here, 89. So we've gone through a few times the Bhagavad Gita. And Krishna first, he introduces the idea that you're not the body and you're going reincarnation. The famous verse most devotees learn if they want to learn shlokas, Dehi nosmin yada dehe Kaumaram yovanam jara tata dehantara praptir dhiras tatra namuhyati. Very important verse. So dehina means the embodied soul, which is all of us. just as we're going through childhood and youth and middle age and old age, then the soul gets another body at death. In other words, we are transmigrating in this body. Body is constantly changing. Does anyone here have the same body they had when they were 10 years old? Obviously not. But we were the same person, right? We can remember so many things there, you see? So then we just keep going, so many experiences, body constantly is changing, growing, we call it, you know. So we're going, and then Krishna says what we cannot know from our position now, and the soul, when the body dies, goes on to another body. And then he says, those who are dhira, who are sober-minded, are not disturbed by this change. Because they know that the person is still alive. This was one of Krishna's arguments why Arjuna should fight in the war. The whole point here is that Arjuna is not he says, Sarvameta mrita manye, I accept as true everything you say, but he's not ready to fight yet. This is only chapter 10. You know, so there's a reason for that. But Krishna wanted Arjuna to fight in the battle. There's a big battle building between good and evil. Between Yudhishthira, who is Dharma personified, the son of Yamaraj actually, and his brothers who are all pious, or they're all sons of gods, really, you know. And they were the rightful heirs to the throne. But it's complicated. I won't get into the whole intricacies of the Mahabharata. But the throne was attempted to be stolen by Dhritarashtra and his sons. This is whole intrigue. So Krishna naturally wanted Yudhishthira and his sons to be enthroned. They were rightfully enthroned, and they would maintain the Dharma in the world. Krishna's most changed religion, actual religion. So as it turned out, it all came. There was no reconciling, and it all came to this battle. This is on a battlefield. This battle of Kurukshetra is going to take place for the rule of the earth. And Krishna, he's always concerned, you know, that the good guys win, that those who are religious, who are, you know, good. And so he wanted Arjuna, the greatest fighter on Yudhishthira's side, to fight in the battle. But because there were his relatives, his teacher was there, his surrogate grandfather, Bhishma Dev, were all on the other side, he got cold feet, so to speak. He had been in so many battles, but never before did he have the prospect of killing those who he loved, some people who he loved there. So he said, I can't fight because even if I win the kingdom, it'll be soaked with the blood of those people, my relatives, Bhishma Dev and others. How can I do it? So he's torn. He wants to do what Krishna says, but he can't. So he's paralyzed. He sits down on the chariot rather than get up and start to fight. He drops his bow, and then he surrenders to Krishna. This is a very important point, right in the second chapter. Rather than arguing with Krishna as a friend, he accepts Krishna as a guru. It's a whole different relationship. He says, you know the truth, now instruct me. Karpanidosho bhata svabhava prichamitvam dharma samudacheta. My mind is confused about the right thing to do, dharma. The Vedic culture, that's all important, that you follow the dharma. Because you know that if you don't do that, you're going to be sinning, and then you're going to suffer in this life and the next. So very concerned. And those who are proper followers of the Vedic culture, they want to do the dharmic thing, the right thing. So Arjuna says, I don't know. So now I'm surrendering to you as a guru. Please, I am your shishya. Please instruct me. And so shishya means that you have to accept what the guru says. So he's entrusting it all in Krishna's hands. And Prabhupada says in this purport, if we want to benefit from the Gita, we need to emulate Arjuna and how he accepted the words of Krishna. And this phrase, Sarvam Etamrita Manya, means I accept as truth everything you say. So if we do that, we can get the same benefit that Arjuna got, which is that he was, you know, disillusioned. He was able to cast his illusion aside and surrender and do that which was difficult. But because it was the right thing to do, he did it with full enthusiasm, and he was successful. So I'll leave it there. If there's any discussion on these points, this is there's a certain turn that happens now, because if you think about it, well, okay, Krishna has declared he's God. Arjuna has accepted him as such. He says, I accept his truth, everything you say. Bas, we say, this word I learned Bas means very good, finished. Now let's fight. I'm going to get up. But instead of doing that, then he turns and says, oh, now please let me know all of the opulent things in this world that we can meditate on you. And you'll see in the purport, he's doing that for us. Because we're not ready to surrender like Arjuna at this point. But we need to be encouraged how we can see the Lord everywhere, be trained so that we can come to the point of surrender at the end. All right, any discussion on this point? These points? Oh, yes. Wait, we want to use the mic, which will go over the YouTube.
Of course.
Thank you. And Antonella. But turn it on. Just the light will go on, you won't hear any amplification.
So Arjuna understand the personality of Krishna.
Yes, he just said so. Param Brahma, Param Dhamma, you are the supreme Brahman.
Okay, so he's, I don't want to say a word, but so he's superior to the demigods?
Krishna?
No, Arjuna.
Is he superior to the demigods?
Because so he says the demigods cannot understand your personality, but Arjuna does.
In some ways, he is. Yes.
Okay.
The demigods. The demigods of the devotees. They're devotees of Krishna, but they're called sakama devotees. Means that they really want to control, and because they're pious, they're devotees. They're given a position, just like Brahma. He also has some attachment to creating the universe and running and everything, but he's the most qualified amongst all the souls who are still attached to some degree. But he's worthy of being Lord Brahma, which is long life and everything. And Indra, I was just reading about the Govardhan Leela. There's an incredible rendition of that in a book called Gopal Champu. Has anyone heard of that book? Gopal? No? Gopal Champu. This is a wonderful description of Krishna's Leela by Jiva Goswami. He's expanded, given so much more detail about the Leela realizations and different points of view. So, Indra, just think about what he did. This always amazed me. He's a devotee. He's given a responsible post of, being the king of heaven, meaning that he controls all the weather. All these storms in Northern California. It's all a sign of impious life. So, but Indra, what did he do? He was insulted when the Krishna stopped the Indra Yajna. He convinced his father not to perform it. He said, we don't have to perform all that, Just worship Govardhan Hill, the cows and the Brahmins. We'll do this big ceremony in honor of Govardhan Hill, which really is what benefits us. And we'll be fine. The heck with Indra, basically, he said. So Indra became enraged. I wrote a little poem, poetic interlude. So. When Krishna stopped King Indra's sacrifice, that monarch of the heavens threw a fit. Those cowards took that foolish boy's advice. Such insolence I never shall permit. So Indra sent the clouds of devastation to pour down catastrophic hail and rain, with lightning winds and lightning thunder winds without cessation. The cowards called to Krishna in their pain to show his coward friends his boundless love and crush King Indra's pride for his own good. Shri Krishna lifted Govardhan above and saved his friends while 'neath the hill they stood. And there's so many details there, what goes on under that hill for 7 days. And so Indra, he was inundating. In other words, he just went completely nuts. He was going to kill all of the Brijbasis. Can you imagine? And of course, he couldn't do that. And when he finally realized, he says, "Oh my God, what have I done?" And so he was encouraged, I think, by Surabhi, to come down and offer obeisances to by Brahaspati, according to Jiva Goswami, is that you have to go down and you have to beg forgiveness, And he went with Surabhi. Surabhi is the mother of all the cows. There's a Goloka that's not Goloka Vrindavan. It's a planet of the cows. And so Surabhi came down, they did an abhishek, he offered his prayers, and he was forgiven by Krishna. So Indra has some issues, He likes being Indra, like the master. And sometimes he can't control the senses. It's interesting that his name is Indra, and the word for senses is Indriya. You can see why. I won't get into detail, but so he's a perfect example of a sakama devotee who's given a responsible post, but he needs, chastisement sometimes. So Arjuna is not like that. Arjuna is an intimate associate of Krishna who goes with him wherever he's born, wherever Krishna appears, he's also there. Arjuna is akama. He's a pure devotee. But here we understand he's covered by Krishna, by Maya, so that the Krishna could speak the Bhagavad Gita and we could listen in. It's a whole arrangement of Krishna. So Arjuna is really better than these Sakama devotees, the demigods. But they're also, devotees. So we don't dishonor them.
You mentioned the trauma of death makes one forget. So
Yes.
what is it that makes one forget like?
Well, even without dying, if you get a blow on the head, amnesia, right? Means you forget everything. We had a devotee here for a while. His name, and he was eventually initiated. He was Bhakta Omar, and then he became Omkar, obviously, what name to get. So he became Omkar. Then he moved to LA. He was there for years. What happened is he had been a student in, I think, of UCLA. And he was riding his bike. He was hit by a car, and he had a blow, and he forgot everything. He forgot that he was a student. He forgot his name. He forgot everything. And eventually he came in touch with devotees, and then he started traveling around the country with them. There was this devotee. I think it was Ray Rama, from the early days. So he naturally, he got into the philosophy, and eventually he got initiated. He got the name Omkar, and then he wanted to travel. He wanted to go to India. But to do that, he needed a passport, and he needed an official, he really needed to know his name and everything. So by that time, he had figured out that he had been a student up in UCLA. So he put up signs with his picture on it. Do you know this student, And some of the people knew him, and they gave him a call. Yeah, how you doing, Bob? And, his name wasn't Omar. That was it. And so he was able to get his passport and everything. So that traumatic forget often comes with a blow to the head. So the process of death is so traumatic that you forget everything. And then what is death really? It's a process of forgetting. If you're going to take a birth as a human being, for Prabhupada explains 7 months. He said 7 months, but he's talking a lunar month, so it's like 6.5 months of our months. You kind of wake up, isn't it? Pregnant women, their child starts kicking at a certain point, right? He's awake. So the mind is working, but the senses, you can't see anything, but you start to wake up. And one of the most amazing passages in the Bhagavatam, 3rd canto, the teachings of Lord Kapila, he explains what's going on with the womb. And then when the child wakes up in the womb, starts praying. Now he can't articulate any actual sound, but within the mind, this child who's pious background starts praying to the Lord. Oh, now I see the result of my sins. I promise in my next life, I'll go to Mangalarti and everything. It's like that. But the child may still be, but the way it's described now, when it comes out, it may not be born into an actual devotee family, and so he loses that. He forgets everything. The trauma of birth is very great. We forgot. Did you remember? I don't remember. It's pretty heavy. It's certainly heavy for the mother. Everyone knows that, right? So that you forget. And the death and the rebirth usually erases. Not always, though. There are so many cases, you may have heard of them. Somehow or other, it happens more in India than anywhere else, but not only in India. Some child grows up, and as soon as they learn how to speak, they'll say something, "You're not really my mother. I belong to this other family. My name was such and such." And because in India, there's a lot of villages, there was this this was this professor named Ian Stevenson, who heard about these and wanted to investigate it. He wrote a book called 20 cases indicative of reincarnation. So he went to India and found some of these children who were like that, and they were giving names, some indication of where they had been living. And so he went to the place and he started investigating. And sure enough, he found many of them were accurate. That yes, there was such a person here. There was a lady who somehow died from an accident or something. So, but they forgot. You forget. The whole thing in Krishna consciousness is that we're trying to remember things that we forgot long ago. And this is why Krishna consciousness, at least for me, I mean, it's felt, that feels so right, you know. and the process and learning about Krishna and the pastimes, it's actually long forgotten things are coming up and for it. So that's why the pure devotees are way beyond these Sakama demigods. This movement is based on the principles of the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Rupa Goswami, which is simply Lord Chaitanya's teachings, codified, right? And so near the beginning, he gives a definition of what the pure devotion is, what we're aiming at. Anyabhilashita shunyam, not shunyam, but shunyam, anyabhilashita shunyam, jnana karmadhyanavratam, anukulena krishnanushilanam, bhaktir uttama. Bhaktir, because there's different kinds of bhakti. There can be bhakti tinged with a material desire, bhakti in the mode of passion, goodness, or even ignorance. But this is pure bhakti, which is what we're aiming at. Unalloyed. So what does he say? Anya abhilashita shunyam, completely devoid of any other motive. The whole thing is the motive. Why are we doing what we're doing? Anya abhilashita shunyam, and what are those other motives? Jnana, karma, anadi. Adi means etc. But they fit mostly into these two categories. Jnana means knowledge, impersonal knowledge leading to mukti. Just liberation. I want to be free of birth, old age, disease, and death. How wonderful that would be. You know, no more, sufferings of old age and disease. I really want that. And oftentimes, let me go to the Himalayas. It's too distracting here in San Diego. I'm going to go to the Himalayas, whatever. And a place, apart from the madding crowd, as I said, so I can just meditate on Brahman and leave this body and never come back. But that's ultimately a selfish thing, you see. That itself is a material desire. Just that I want to be alone, delivered, heck with everybody else. But bhaktas are not like that. Prahlad Maharaj is the ideal. He's one of the Mahajans, the great devotees who embody the perfection of bhakti. So he says, Prayena Deva Munayo Sava Mukti Kama. For the most part, these learned yogic sages, Swavamukti Kama, he says, wanting their own mukti is a kind of material desire. And to that end, they leave the congested cities, they wander in the hills and the forests, Vimamuksha Eko, simply wanting their own liberation. But what does Prahlad say? He said, Naitan Vihaya Kupanan, I can't leave these fools and rascals aside, who we mentioned in the previous verse, who are after Maya Sukhaya, the ordinary persons. He's feeling Paraduka Duki. Have you heard that phrase before? Paraduka Duki means, this phrase has become kind of a cliche for politicians. I feel your pain. Means and they say you feel your pain because they want your vote, But the devotees really do feel the pain of others. They feel empathy, and that's a sign of a pious soul who's empathetic to the sufferings of others. So Prahlad is saying, I don't have any problem. I can be absorbed in bhakti to you and chanting your glories and dive into an ocean of nectar anywhere. And he proved that he was able to tolerate his father's tortures without flinching. It's amazing. I mean, even just the threat of being thrown into a vat of boiling oil would probably make our hair stand on end, right? No, thank you. But he was so much absorbed in Krishna that he didn't feel a thing, He was ready to undergo all of that for preaching, because he's preaching to his friends, Krishna consciousness. So the devotee, Anyabhilashita, he doesn't want mukti, he doesn't want anything to do with karma, go to the heavenly planets, forget that. Even yogic siddhis, who cares, What does he want then? So this is the second half. Anukulyena krishnanushilanam, behavior, activity that is intended and which does please Krishna out of love. That's the pure bhakti that we're looking for. And that takes you back to Godhead, to an eternal life of bliss and knowledge. That kind of love for Krishna. Now it's kind of paradoxical, and Prabhupada preached that way. You should try to want to go back to Godhead. You know, he says, yeah, I want to go back to Godhead. You know, and I'll cooperate with Krishna, and I'll be happy. You know, okay, that's okay, but that's also ultimately not the desire. Desire is simply what Krishna wants. If Krishna wants me to stay here and preach and do service, I'll stay here. As long as I can always remember him, as long as I can get it. That's the pure motive. And Srila Prabhupada showed that. He left Vrindavan, the ideal place. He's sitting in the center of the spiritual universe, you know, Radha Damodar temple. I know that temple. It's just like a stone's throw away from Seva Kunj, where Krishna had his rasa dance. Uh-oh. I think they're okay, hopefully. So why did he leave? Why would anyone leave there? You know, because he had the order of his spiritual master. He had Lord Chaitanya's prediction to preach in the West, to take Krishna consciousness to those millions of people who never heard of it. And if Prabhupada didn't undertake all the austerities, you know, and tolerate what it took, you know, the story to come here, he almost left his body on the ship. And he undertook that, and then struggled for so long in America. I mean, New York City, I didn't even want to go when I lived 50 miles away. It was such a trip, you know. Prabhupada comes, you know, and I had a return ticket on the train to get back home. Prabhupada, he could have gone back home, but he came and he offered his prayer and Markandeya Bhagavad. Somehow he brought me to this terrible place. So Krishna, he's playing to Krishna. And if you want, please make my power of speaking such that they'll understand and Krishna did, you know, miraculous. The whole thing is a miracle. Us sitting here, reading this authorized Bhagavad Gita, chanting Hare Krishna is totally miraculous. It's amazing when you think about it. Okay, go ahead.
Krishna.
Oh boy. Sorry,
so since you mentioned gopis, so I want to ask, whenever we see Krishna, it's Radha with him, right? We say Ram, it's Sita. We say Shiva, it's Parvati, right? We always see them together. So my question is...
Sita Ram, yeah.
Yeah, so is Krishna complete? Krishna is complete within himself. He's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So does Radha has significance? Like, what's the benefit of having a feminine aspect with him?
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to understand.
All right. Well, this is part of the Gaudiya Vaishnava Siddhanta. It's not that they monopolize Radharani, but that the theology as developed by our great scholars like Jiva Goswami, Rupa Goswami, Sanatan, like that, and their followers like Vishwanath, is that Krishna is the as I gave you were here with this 10 roots, right? The 10 elements of philosophy. That Bhaktivinoda Thakur, I won't go through it again. But at the beginning, the first line is all about who is Krishna, right? Hadamiha Padamam. Yes, Krishna is God. That's the first point of philosophy. But what about him? Sarva Shaktim. He's the possessor of all energies. Everything, including us. We're his energy, marginal energy. You see? And the earth, water, fire, air, ether, everything we see around us is also his energy, material energy, unconscious. But he also has his internal energies by which he maintains the spiritual world. And one of those energies is his pleasure energy. Ladani. Ladani means pleasure, you know, spiritual pleasure. Ladani Shakti, which is personified as Srimati Radharani. Now what does that mean? It means that you can learn a lot about God by contemplating yourself. We also want to have pleasure, right? Life is unthinkable without it. You know, just eating and, you know, sleeping, mating, all of these things. This is basic pleasures. But there's so many others refined. So Krishna is God. So therefore, he has the power of enjoying the greatest pleasure. But what is that? It's not like lording it over everyone. I'm God. You know, and if you don't do the right thing, I'll smite you or smote you. As Bhadravina says, smote is past tense. The religion of fear. Oh no! Fear and trembling. I don't want to go to hell. I don't want to go across. That's not the highest religion. You know, So how does Krishna enjoy? That's also there. Rasabdim. He's an ocean of rasa, just like we do. In other words, rasa means some relationship, even if it's with something inanimate. Now, you have the inanimate things that pretend to be animate. AI, right? Artificial intelligence. Madness. They're making robots who are very, very close to human beings. They can compose things and write things better than others. This is a new thing now. What is it? ChatGPT. Yes, ChatGPT. So, and anyway, the whole craziness that's going on. So, but because you have to have some relationship. If you're just sitting alone in your room all day, you go crazy. No matter how much you have electronics, it's sick. So that relationship with Krishna was a wholesome relationship with his feminine counterpart. So there's all of this, intimate relationship, give and take, varieties. A lot of it, if you read into the Lama, there's a whole chapter full of wordplay. Where Krishna is giving some riddle and Radharani's answering, she's giving a riddle, like that goes on. And it's all on the basis of the most wholesome, enjoyment. And she expands. All the other gopis, all the queens, and as far as I know, all the devotees, expanding, that Ladini Shakti is there. And it's all based on love, selfless love, taking your pleasure in the pleasure of the beloved. Perfect example, the mother and child. The mother and a little helpless child. Child is, 3 months old, and hardly knows anything, But the mother is completely concerned. Is the child comfortable? Is he well fed, Why is he crying, Focus on that. If the child is happy, gives one of those little toothless smiles, that makes the day of the mother, right? Oh, my child. Totally selfless. It's not like, okay, if you do this, then I'll feed you. It's not like that. There's no bargaining. But the child grows, ends up and it can go away. It's temporary, but it's the closest thing we have. So the whole world, the spiritual world, is filled with devotees who have their own, specific, custom-made rasa with Krishna, and they engage in that, and it gives Krishna pleasure, and that gives them pleasure. We'll end with this. I'm sorry, there's not enough time. In the morning you can go on, and you can go an hour, but here we're limited. So the wonderful phrase again by Jiva Goswami. This is not so famous, but I remember reading it. I immediately memorized it. This is the essence of the whole practice of the perfection. Bhajaniya Parama Purusha Sukha Matra Swasukatvam means that. Taking one's sole pleasure in giving pleasure to the worshipable Lord. That's the essence of bhakti. Bhajaniya Parama Purusha, the Supreme Person here. And because we're part and parcel of Krishna, that gives us the greatest pleasure. It's just like the feeding the stomach, the senses, and they go on strike. The hands. And the feet, and they say, why are we working so hard getting something feed into the stomach, Why? And he's just sitting there. So they go on strike. But then they get weak because they're getting energy from the stomach. So they said, okay, we better feed the stomach. So similarly, if we try to please Krishna, we find that it gives us the greatest pleasure. So much so that we can give up all attraction to lower things, There's no time. Look at the clock, right? I'm sorry, it's time. But maybe afterward, Although you were pointing, I thought you were raising your hand. Okay. All right, we'll have a kirtan. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari Bol. And hopefully we can convene tomorrow, same time. Well, we got through one verse anyway.